Hello everybody, welcome back to Cinema Savvy. It is myself, George, joined by Ren, in a way you can't see. We're trying something new, something very different, and something I really hope could potentially work, as we bring and present to you another wrestling spoiler discussion. We are, of course, talking WWE's Evolution, the PLE that happened the Sunday just gone, and you might be wondering, why has it took so long to get this video done? As you can tell, I am right now in this camera alone. And Ren is going to provide an intro because Ren has recorded his thoughts on the pay-per-view. And between us, I say working remotely, like if you've seen our streams, you'll know we're always in different parts of the country anyway. We are going to be doing something where we can do the PLE discussion together and intro it and hope it makes sense. So this might be the weirdest video you ever watch on our channel, but it might also be the most incredible. And at the root of it, we do get to talk about wrestling because, of course, it is the second Evolution pay-per-view of all time, the complete female-led wrestling event, and an event, if I'm totally honest, that I don't think's had a very good build-up and may shock others in being regarded as one of the best events of the year that WWE has put on quite comfortably the busiest wrestling weekend of the year so far. There was Saturday night's main event, the Great American Bash. Of course, AEW had All In back in America, which took place, and Evolution was the Sunday night. And with it being the Sunday night in America, that's Monday morning for us here in the UK. Our working patterns just can't make it work between us to get a stream on this week. And we don't want to not talk about this, especially after what happened. So we're trying something a bit different. And if this video goes up correctly, it should be going up on Wednesday, which means that the editing has worked. It has somehow worked. And we present to you our thoughts. But I'm going to hand over to Ren to give you his thoughts on heading into this event.
Welcome back to Cinema Savvy, everyone. Thank you again for joining us for another recap review of another big PLE, the most underrated PLE of 2025, turns out. Evolution has finally happened, and while the build was very lackluster, this is kind of my favorite version of a turn of events, where the build really wasn't that good, despite them assembling a roster of incredible matches on paper. And then I saw Evolution with that in mind, that the build had just been so underwhelming, and this might be the PLE of the year in a weekend that was jam-packed with wrestling, a weekend where 4 events happened, 2 on Saturday, 2 on Sunday, and only one of them was mediocre. The other 3 were all bangers. But Evolution not only for me takes the cake out of this past weekend in professional wrestling, it takes the cake out of the entire year so far.
So he's had the same thoughts as me with that one. As I said, it's been an incredibly busy weekend if you are a wrestling fan. If you're a fan of one promotion, let alone 2, or you watch as much as you can, it's been heaving as an understatement. But as I start talking about these matches, I'm going to intro the first one, then Ren's going to come in, and he's going to intro the second one. So we're going to make it work between us. But we haven't really spoke to each other this week about the events of the pay-per-view. I don't know his exact thoughts. And I'm going to be watching it whilst I'm doing this. I'm going to be talking about what he said too. And as always, I do want to hear from people at home. So please do comment your thoughts on Evolution, your thoughts on WWE this year. Obviously, I know we're not talking Saturday night's main event, but we've obviously lost Seth Rollins to a massive injury, which is going to be a big problem down the line. So please comment your thoughts. If you like this video, we know the next pay-per-view is Summerslam as well, so we'll be covering that. But kickstarting this event, we have the triple threat between Becky, Lynch, Bayley and Lila Vaquer for what has gone to be, in the space of a few months, one of the best titles in women's wrestling. The Women's Intercontinental Championship. I don't know really what to say about this match as a whole, because this is the first match in what's gone on to be one of the best nights of the year for WWE. And you've got here 2 Hall of Famers, 2 of the 4 Horsewomen, and with the storyline with Lyra, they've been building her up, and whilst I'm not going to use the word putting her over, Lyra is shifting into a main event caliber wrestler, and it is because the talent she has been able to work with that she has been able to be elevated with. She has been in the right feud to have the right dramatic moments, the right storylines, and it's been an absolute delight seeing these going at each other over the last few months, particularly Becky Lynch as well, with the heel turn, being involved in this belt, going for obviously not the main event scene, but going for this. It does elevate people. It is the working championship, and I absolutely love this as as a storyline, I guess is where we can say with this one. And it does feel right to open Evolution with this. It doesn't need to be the battle royale or the simple crowd pleaser. This is, let's get one of the best storylines that's been going on and let's keep it going in this. And the match that they put on was just absolutely outstanding between the three of them. I'm a big fan of these, and whilst I'm unfamiliar with Lyra compared to the other two, of course I don't watch NXT like when I was younger, so I knew of Bayley, I knew of Becky when they're in NXT, heading into the roster and seeing how those two grew, and obviously we're getting somewhat evolved Bayley character coming on. We've got the Becky heel turn that's been incredible so far, but to see these together, I just think absolutely nailed it. And to also have Becky win this belt and keep the belt on her, I actually think's right for the story, because there's a lot of heel champions at the moment in WWE. I don't know if people have clocked this, and we all know Triple H loves a heel, but I kind of prefer heel champions too. But I get tired of the ones where it's, oh, let's do something terribly evil to win the match. And I think John Cena's fell into that category at the moment, which is a different conversation for a different event. But with Becky, I like the fact we're getting more of these quicker roll-ups that, yes, she is a villain. So whilst she isn't beating them, not necessarily clean, but she's finding ways to win, which shows her strength as a performer, elevates her character and keeps her in that belt. And it only builds more and more the underdog story for someone like Lyra, who's going to have an amazing career, which I think being in this belt at the moment is the right scene for her, working with the right people, and what a way to kickstart the show. But I do want to hear what Ren's got to say on this one.
This triple threat was incredible. You got two veterans that just cannot miss at their points in their careers, in Becky Lynch and Bayley. You got a star in the making, arguably already a star with all the shine that she's rightfully gotten this year so far, in Lyra Valkyria. This is just a perfect match to kick off the night, show what these ladies can accomplish. They just made magic together to kick us off right. And the crowd was on fire. Since this is the first match, I want to shout out the crowd, because this is probably the best US crowd we've heard all year. They were so into this match. The ladies were so into this match. It keeps giving prestige to the Intercontinental Championship. And I'm someone who was very afraid, very hesitant to see this Women's Intercontinental and Women's US title coming in, because the roster is just so jam-packed. A lot of titles don't seem to have that prestige to them anymore, just because you can't have everyone and every title in every show. But as far as the Intercontinental Championship, the Ladies Intercontinental Championship, and the Women's United States Championship are concerned, they've done a banging job. And I think it was perfect for Becky Lynch to win that smooth as hell pin transition to end it all. It was great to protect Lyra, but also keep the story of Bayley going, where she feels disenfranchised. She is one of the 4 horsewomen. Honestly, top 2 horsewomen were right in this match. And having seen Raw by the point we're recording this, Lyra going against Becky to finally triumph on that SummerSlam stage, literally the biggest SummerSlam ever, I think is just perfect. This match was chef's kiss to kick off the night. And from there, we move to the NXT Women's Championship. Jacy Jayne defending against Jordynne Grace. Obviously, Jacy Jayne brings Fatal Attraction behind her. And Jordynne Grace brought out Blake Monroe, one of the biggest superstars in the world right now. And I thought this was a really good match. It fits more into NXT Great American Bash sort of thing, but it was a classic NXT match. And if you know me, you know what I say. NXT is consistently the best wrestling TV show every single week. Jacy Jayne, Jordynne Grace, they both proved why that is the case with this match. I don't think there's quite any particular highlights. I think both these ladies have had better outings this year so far. That's not to put down this match. It's a comparison thing. They've done better. I've seen what more they can accomplish. And obviously, maybe it felt a little bit safe with the rest of the night because we had to give more time to other matches because main roster and all of that. But what I found really interesting was the heel turn at the end where Blake Monroe stabs Jordynne Grace in the back with the title. JC Jane retains. And now we got a program between Jordynne Grace, because we keep protecting her, and Blake Monroe is going to skyrocket to the stratosphere very, very fast. If I can nitpick, I think it's very weird that Blake Monroe is just cool with JC Jane now. She says, I think she should still like have some sort of grudge towards Fatal Attraction, and I just can't wait to see what else happens on NXT. What happens between Jordynne Grace and Blake Monroe, because Jordynne Grace is a powerhouse. We've seen Blake Monroe, aka Mariah May, can be violent as all hell. So I cannot wait to see what these two do together.
Okay, so I am not as familiar with JC Jane. I kind of mentioned I don't watch NXT anymore. And I think for a show like this, and this is where I really appreciate it, certainly not necessarily towards the end of the Black and Gold era of NXT, but when the NXT talent would get the chance to come on the main roster whilst also still being in NXT, and I know that does happen now, but the representation to get the women's champion on this show in storyline, I thought was incredibly exciting. It should be on this show, and NXT, we spoke about the Horsewomen earlier. It has paved the way for this generation, and obviously I didn't even mention Stephanie McMahon, of course, was one of the hosts of the evening, who absolutely should be there. But this match I really appreciated because I wasn't as invested, but I wanted to see, okay, what is the talent like? I've seen Jordynne Grace, of course, in like the Royal Rumble and a few other things. We know she's going to be a huge star. And I'll be totally honest, Blake Monroe in this one, I have obviously seen a lot of AEW. I know we don't talk as much about it. We're not into... Me and Ren aren't into the rivalries. We've both been in the All-Ins in London. We watched both shows together. Me, openly, not as much. But the feud that she's had with Toni Storm as Mariah May. And that's been one of the greatest feuds of the last few years. And we're really open with this one. So to see her back in NXT... Well, not back in NXT. See her in NXT, who we know is going to end up flying to that main roster. She's such a star that it took me out of the match. And... whilst the match was fine, I actually didn't like the ending. It's like my only criticism. I don't mind her turning heel. I quite like the idea of her maybe going up against Jordynne Grace or whatnot because they're both on their way up. But the slapping on the back it didn't look right to me, and it's such a minor thing to nitpick. But when the match ended, I was sort of like, oh. It was like that sort of, okay. And it's like the only criticism I really have on this, and aligning herself with the others as well. Ren's just said it too. It just felt a bit, she's kind of with them. No, she's not with them. Is she her own thing? And what we're setting up? So whilst I'm invested, I'm curious at the payoffs. But I also sit here knowing, like what's happened with Julia, like what's happened with Stephanie Vaquer, these two are going to be on the main roster within 6 months. Rightfully so as well. But there's nothing wrong with being at NXT, maybe to freshen up on a couple of things that may be needed, being around that performance center, learning how WWE works. So I really enjoyed this match, and the placement of it, I also understand it being there. And because what it is sandwiched between, not only did we have the great triple threat earlier, the match that followed this one was another excellent match. It was the tag titles. And, of course, the women's tag division is something I've been very critical of in recent years. It always just feels like, hey, there's two popular individuals, let's chuck them together and make a team and give them these belts because we get to use them. They get to have a belt, they're a name, they're more famous. And the problem I have with WWE's programming of the women's title is it always just feels like the afterthought of afterthoughts. It's like the most irrelevant title they want to offer the stage. And it's been hard for it to be made its own, is where I'm going with this. And kind of looking at the tag teams that were involved in this, we had the Judgment Day, Raquel Rodriguez, Roxanne Perez, who entered as not necessarily the favourites to an extent, but we know there's a Judgment Day program going on with Liv Morgan, unfortunately, and for this show, devastatingly, whilst the show wasn't impacted in the aspect of how it was finished and how the PLE was, it did impact the show because you wanted to be like, she should be there. But Liv Morgan had a presence about being there, which I really appreciate. But we had Charlotte Flair and Alexa Bliss, who were the favourites from my perspective. We're seeing Charlotte more into the mid-tier. There was a great article that she wrote last week, which I really recommend for people to watch. She's starting to get over the fans again. I'm not going to sit here and berate her. That's obviously happened a lot. I think the issue myself has had with Charlotte has been can't you just put her away from the main belt? And it was like this main event person that not wouldn't go away, but not do something different in a rude way. But she's going into the tag division at the moment, right? And she's pairing up with Alexa Bliss, and they've got great chemistry together. I'm enjoying what they are doing, and them together in this tag whilst they didn't win the belts. I loved seeing them working with one another and pulling her out of the spear, building that relationship between them. I'm down with it. And I think that is going to get Charlotte over because it's something she hasn't really been able to do as a character. She's just been, the queen for the whole time. Charlotte turns up, she wins the belt, she continues. It's been that trajectory, and I think going back to the start of the year, I'd say the fair criticism, the Rumble win, it wasn't an earned Mania shot, and obviously the feud itself did not work at all, which everyone knows. And I think that's for both people involved in that feud why that didn't work. But having paired with Alexa Bliss, they've worked together before, they've been programming before. I'm really enjoying it. I'm curious by it, and it stuck with me. And their chemistry in the ring was great. And of course, we also have the Kabuki Warriors, and obviously we've lost people from. It was Damage Control we lost others from, but Oscar's still returning, Kairi Sane's been returning. I didn't look at them as having the chance to win this. It's great to have them in. We know their abilities, technical wrestlers, but then we're also getting Sol Ruka and Zariah, who have been a tag team, who do have program and who had great chemistry with some of these. These aren't just some main event people. These were so there's a couple of Hall of Famers in here. Charlotte Flair's a Hall of Famer, so is Oscar, like first ballot when the time comes. You could probably say Alexa Bliss maybe in the future. I don't really look at those sorts of things and think about it too hard, but Raquel Rodriguez, who had an amazing match a few weeks ago as well, she looked great in this, and we're building up the Roxanne Perez storyline on the side. And whilst Evolution is, the women's pay-per-view, they're also got to build to SummerSlam, which is in 3 weeks' time. So I like that there's still story threads open and threads for them to work with and play along with. And I've got to say, I really appreciated how they did do this one. I enjoyed this match. It was the right timing and the placement of the show for the tag match. I don't think it needed to be any later. But it did feel like, we're going to have some great spots. We're going to have some of these great talent. We're going to showcase what we can do before we start getting into those big title feuds.
I love tag team matches. There are multiple teams. I love chaos in tag team form. And this is exactly what this match was. Maybe a little bit too short for my taste, just to allow everyone to have their time to shine. I maybe would have protected Sol Ruka a bit because she's just a star. She can do no wrong. That team they put her together in with Zarya is fantastic. I think everyone here did a great job, but I want to specifically shout out the team of Alexa Bliss and Charlotte Flair because myself, George, so many wrestling fans around the world have been begging for 10 years at this point for anything interesting to be done with Charlotte Flair as a character. Nobody's complaining about Charlotte Flair's abilities and talent in the ring as a pro wrestler. She is one of the greatest of all time. Her character, though, the psychology of it has been very, very boring for over a decade. This is a character that has not evolved whatsoever on screen. And we got an evolution of Charlotte Flair at Evolution. It was so good to see the little psychology moments between her and Alexa Bliss, her protecting Bliss, her sort of growing warmer, growing more fond of Alexa Bliss, maybe now seeing her more as a friend. I think the two of them did a great job. Raquel and Roxanne needed to retain. You need to keep that shine on to keep the story with the Judgment Day going. You need to give a little bit of shine to Roxanne Perez as well because she was just handed the title. So this really works for them. You cannot go wrong with the Kabuki Warriors. You had a little bit of shine there for NXT. I just thought this ticked all the boxes a match like this should tick. And from there, we go into the biggest disappointment of the night for me, where Tiffany Stratton, a babyface by the way, just in case the internet is confused about that, defends against Hall of Famer, Mount Rushmore of women's wrestler of all time, Trish Stratus. And I was very underwhelmed by this match. It's not a bad match. I don't think anyone can work a bad match with Trish Stratus. I think Tiffany Stratton has evolved. I keep using that word, I apologize, but take a shot every time one of us uses the word evolve or evolution or a variant of those. I think Tiffy has just evolved so well, so much, so naturally, so smoothly, and so fast ever since she came into the main roster. And they just had a very safe match. That's the biggest issue. It's not a bad match, it's just very safe. And it also was very short. Out of all the matches, to cut the time short, I don't think cutting most of the time from the Women's WWE Championship match is the smartest idea. And that's really the thing. I don't have a lot to say about this match just because it's safe. It's everything you've seen Tiffany Stratton do. It's all their greatest hits. Even the finish was sort of, oh, it's over. Okay, like, cool. Of course, Tiffany retained. She had to retain. She should retain. And Trish got a moment after the match. But the match itself just, it matched the build to this show, which was, yeah, it's fine. It's okay. We could have done more. And for some reason, we just chose not to. And that's disappointing because it's Trish Stratus coming back. She comes back at least once a year, yes, but still, we should have done more with Trish Stratus in the ring going for a world championship. And Tiffany Stratton should have given more of a shine. She is going against Trish Stratus. So, again, not a bad match. It wasn't awful. I don't mind watching it, but it's just very safe. It feels like a SmackDown match. And it shouldn't, because this is your biggest women's title, this is Trish Stratus, and this is one of her future stars. They keep putting it over as she's 25 years old. Yeah, so she's got a lot of years in her career. She's going to make a lot of money for herself and for this company. She's going to be one of the faces of the company as she is right now. So this match just should have been more than what it was.
Okay, so this is going to be an interesting one. I don't know if we can talk about this segment longer than the match, but we might, because the first thing I thought was this match was really short, and it was weird because whilst the build-up to this event hasn't been good, it did feel like at some point this year we'll get Tiffy versus Trish Stratus, especially when they teamed up earlier in the year. Their chemistry in the ring with each other, their promos, how similar they are, the athleticism. They always talk about Tiffy's her career being a cheerleader before. So when they come together and an event like this, it's like, okay, which Hall of Famer can we get in? There's Nikki Bella. Keep her away from Tiffy, please. And there is Trish Stratus who could pop up, and everyone's always dreaming actually who could come back. Could who come back? Obviously, we're still working on that. You all know who I mean by that. I don't want to say the name because it's tempting. Everyone wants her to return, but maybe one day. Maybe one day AJ will return, who knows. But this match was fine. But it was kind of nothing more than that. I loved the move, and I don't know how intentional, but it looked grim, where there was like a Tiffy did like a move into a backstabber, which looked really, really painful. It looked phenomenal if that move worked as its intention, and please do keep doing that and do it in the future to other people. But yeah, it just felt very safe. It didn't scream pay-per-view for me, and at the same time this is sort of bogged down because you look at the three matches that come after this, which a lot of people are talking about more, and with Tiffy being like the women's champion, I know it's meant to be there's a champion per show, the heavyweight should be on par with WWE. To me, that's just never been the thing. WWE is the main one, and Tiffy has that belt, and I just wasn't entirely sure by this match. It's nothing against their performance. They were both great in the ring together, but it just, as you said, it felt like a match on SmackDown. It felt like a main event off a weekly show. I think Naomi's been overshadowing this match for so long, and we get to talk about Naomi a lot shortly, but putting this before Naomi's, I guess we can say, first match of the night, with it being a spoiler discussion, I think was just to clear could she cash in on her now? I don't really think it was ever going to be done on this show. No one thought that. Everyone was thinking, because we've got Jade versus Tiffy now, and now with Naomi out of that picture for a month, it does feel like, are we going to get... Is Jade just going to squash her at SummerSlam? We'll find out, and it feels like a title heading towards the end of its reign. But as I spoke about Naomi, I've got to talk about Naomi versus Jade Cargill. We're going to talk about Naomi a little bit later as well, but this match, one of the best matches. It's a phenomenal card. And this was probably the second best match of the night for me. But these two, who have just had this incredible rivalry that obviously kick-started back at Elimination Chamber properly with the name is heel turn, not dragging it out, the reveal of it being her, just how this has been booked and the chemistry they've had, whether it be, Bianca coming back and getting to referee it. I've loved this. And it just feels like two people who have great ring chemistry just wanting to kill each other. And sometimes that is as simple as that in wrestling and it works like that. But the damage they did to each other, what they put their bodies through, you just have to commend it. It's a fantastic match. It made Naomi feel like a main eventer, whilst it wasn't the main event, and it made Jade Cargill look like a superstar. And I think that's where they're going with this, is that we are moving forward with the women's division where certain people are getting older. I'm not saying they're being phased out at all, but what I spoke about earlier, that Bayley can drop to the mid-card, Becky Lynch can drop to the mid-card. Who can you put into that main event to start taking their places? I mean, I'm looking at people like this, and Naomi, who has been such a huge asset to WWE, and I don't mean asset like it's a piece, but she never had the recognition she should have had. And this heel turn this year has been, I think, her best character work ever. Whilst I love, the glow and all the fun stuff she does, we've unlocked something else from her. She is unpredictable, as we found out. She is incredibly wild, and there is something quite scary about her in that ring. And I'm so excited to see what's going to come more from it. And I think having her lose also made more sense for what is to come. Because at the time of her losing, you did think, okay, she's going to come out of SummerSlam after Tiffany versus Jade, but nope, we're not getting that. So, yeah, this was quite something, and I'm curious to see what other people thought of this. I've not read much about this event because I knew we're doing this review this way. I've really kept away from the normal channels I'd watch wrestling stuff on, so I'm going in very clean, and I'm excited to see what Ren thinks of this one too.
Jade versus Naomi, false count anywhere match or no holds barred match, they're all the same thing. It doesn't matter. Again, these ladies can do no wrong. They did it at WrestleMania. They probably had a better match here. And what I'm about to say makes it sound like this is yet another disappointing match. It's not. The match itself was great. And given the direction we go in after, I guess it makes sense. But I just sort of expected and wanted Bianca Belair as the guest referee to give more tension to the match, have a little bit more moments between the three characters to resolve their story. And again, I just think they played it safe, and Bianca Belair was just a referee. She just happened to be Bianca Belair. And if you're going to have a special guest referee, one that has so much history with both the competitors, where her loyalties could sway either way, they didn't really have fun with that. They didn't really play with the hypothetical scenarios. Even if nothing was going to happen, at least play with it a little bit. Because now Jade has 2 victories over Naomi, because she won a WrestleMania as well. And I just think if this is how we were going to do it, and again, the match in and of itself is great, just don't have Bianca Belair as a special guest referee. She had to be there because this is Evolution. You're not going to have your all-women's pay-per-view without one of the biggest stars in your company. But if this was going to be the use for her, I think it'd be more interesting to have her in the Battle Royal. And again, just didn't need Bianca there if this is what we were going to do, or better yet, not do, with her being present in this match. But from then, we move on to the Battle Royal. And this is always just a fun type of match to have in a pay-per-view. Just loads of people in the ring, try to get each other out. You had lots of shines on NXT superstars like Izzy Dame, Tatum Paxley, which was immediately the first one thrown away. Jada Parker was there. Lash Legend made her name for herself. Lash Legend was given such a spotlight. She is either moving on to the main roster very quickly, or she's about to win the NXT Women's Championship very soon, at least before the end of the year. That's my prediction right now. That's at least how I see it going. Let's just see what happens tonight on NXT, and maybe we'll already get a sense of what is happening. Because if she's staying in NXT, we'll see her compete tonight, because she got a lot of shine on the weekend. If she doesn't show up on NXT, I lean towards more Lash Legend coming up to the main roster. But forget Lash Legend, forget Nikki Bella, forget everything and everyone else. Stephanie Vaquer, La Primera, won the Battle Royal. This is the correct winner. Because I felt she was the correct winner for the Money in the Bank. She didn't. Congrats to Naomi. She deserves it. We'll talk more about that in a sec. And then I thought she should have been the Queen of the Ring. Jade won that. All good. I'm not mad at it. She won a Battle Royal, and she's now headed for Clash in Paris. And I think we're still going to hold off on who she's facing, because now it's very tricky. Because on one hand, the instinct is to have Stephanie win at Clash in Paris, but Naomi just became champion. I'm not sure she loses at SummerSlam. I would like to see Naomi, especially as a heel, have a meaningful title reign like she did in TNA as the Knockouts champion. I think it'd be interesting to have Stephanie go against Tiffy, and you can do something else to transition Tiffy into another storyline and crown Stephanie Vaquer as the women's champion. That's just how I see it, at least for now. They're just keeping it up in the air because we got SummerSlam before Clash. I think that makes total sense, so we shouldn't worry with that about now. I think Stephanie, honestly, is just going to keep it to herself until after SummerSlam, and that's when she reveals who she's going to face. But the Battle Royal in and of itself, great fun. The finish was fantastic. Chelsea Green, I got to give a shout out to her because she's just wonderful. That woman understands her role so frigging well. It's exactly what you want from a Battle Royal. Chaos, mayhem, so many superstars having these moments in the spotlight as they deserve. Just great, fun stuff.
So my controversial opinion, maybe not for the whole show, but for this segment at least, the Royal Rumble is my favourite match of the year. And whilst I want WrestleMania here in England, I would probably take going to the singular enjoyment of a Rumble more than I ever would of a Mania, which sounds kind of stupid, but not the point, but the point. And Battle Royale sort of fall into that category for me, that I love a Battle Royale. We don't get many of them, and when we do, we have the Andre the Giant Battle Memorial, which is a lot of fun, but it tends to be mid-carders and below, or up-and-comers. Or we get lower people, or it's someone's been injured, let's do something quickly to see what we can do around it. But this one, adding the stake that, hey, you're going to get a title shot in Paris, and it's not specified for which belt, so it isn't specified for this is the show you're on, it's just you're going to get a title shot of your choice. Kind of a Money in the Bank without the cash-in, and I quite liked this, and this felt like there were stakes. And then the names of people that are involved, you're bringing back a Nikki Bella, you've got Nia Jax, you've got, of course, Stephanie Vaquer, who would go on to win this match. We've got Chelsea Green, we've got so many others. It was really up in the air that, hey, multiple different people could have won. Julia's in there as well. We've got Zelina Vega in there. It could have given someone a chance to go from mid-card to main event, or keep a main event person at a main event, make a dastardly heel a bit more of an evil person, or make the superface an even superface. So I thought this worked very well. I loved the match itself. There were some incredible spots, potentially stars being made, particularly, I'm not saying Chelsea Green's been made into a star, but to have the eyes on them and to see who they're working with and who they are around for the first time. Lash Legend is probably the person that maybe benefits the most, even if she didn't win, she came second. She got incredible moments. Pairing her with Zelina was very funny from a height dynamic as well, but Chelsea Green, as you said, gets some of the great moments. She reminds us not her place, but how appreciated she is in that scene, that she can float between the mid-card, she can float in the main event, she's sort of welcome wherever she pleases in WWE, but she's just got so much personality with that and performance that she's just amazing. But Stephanie Vaquer was the right person to win. And I know there's a few little moments, you've got Nikki Bella, you've got them smiling and laughing together, and it is quite wholesome, especially after what Nikki Bella went through. Even though I'm not a fan of her as a performer, it's nice that she is back to an extent. The extent is how far that really goes, particularly with obviously the John Laurinaitis stuff. But having Stephanie Vaquer win by doing the devil's kiss on the apron, just throwing the dead body off, perfect. No notes. Absolutely deserved to win that match. Fan favourite, everyone wanted her to win. The fact that the move is so over and the Booker T noises, you try and think, are they counting to 10? No, it's just the Booker T noises, and yeah, it was quite special. It was quite something. I'm so happy she won. And I love these sorts of matches. And it's so perfectly placed within that schedule that, yes, this isn't going to be the main event. This isn't a blood feud. This is so perfectly sat between what those two were. And I think they have to have credit for this. Heading into that main event, though, we've got Rhea Ripley versus Io Sky. What an incredible match that was, whilst it was two of them still. One of the best matches of the year. Absolutely going. I mentioned earlier, how Naomi and Jade want to kill each other. These were just two of the best wrestlers having an incredible match with one another. Their in-ring chemistry, their respect for one another, the different styles of wrestling, what they put each other through with the moves. They were willing to really go for it with regard, a power bomb on the outskirts, table spots, just two of the absolute best at each other. It was an incredible match. It rightfully was the main event of this pay-per-view. I believe these are two of the best wrestlers. Maybe they probably are the two best female wrestlers that should have had this main event slot. And while some people, you get the usual nonsense online on social media, no, Rhea Ripley is not Charlotte Flair just being in the main event scene, but Rhea Ripley is in the main event scene because she is main event. She is on par with some of the biggest male wrestlers, if you want to even call it that in a weird way. She's one of the biggest stars this company has. And it's off her performance in the ring. It's off her chemistry with other people. It's her character, her personality. How she even is behind the scenes when she's away from the camera. She's so likeable on interviews. Rhea Ripley's a Hall of Famer. And what they went through with each other in this match was quite special. I've got to say that I hate Io's reign. She's been done dirty. You go to that incredible triple threat back at WrestleMania. You look at sort of what's been after, it's nothing. She's just been tucked away for a few months. I don't know if she's carried an injury that no one knew, they didn't want to strip her of it, or she's going to take some time out, or they just didn't use her. I'm not quite sure what went on there, but I don't think she had the reign she deserves, which is so frustrating. She had a very underrated reign back on SmackDown, obviously, when she had everything going against Bayley as well. She's a great champion, but she didn't get the chance to showcase it, even though she was completely over with the fans, and that leads into some of that questions we've all had with WWE's programming this year. But how this then went, and this was spoilt for me, so I can say this, waking up and seeing Naomi was the women's title, it took a couple of seconds, because I woke up, I went on social media, and I saw the photo, and I just didn't clock at that point in general. I was like, that's not the WWE women's belt. I hadn't clocked, and obviously I did a little bit later on, but you've got to give WWE credit, right, to have done this with this talent, two of the biggest stars in the company, and you take someone from the other show. No, that's a bad show. I love SmackDown, but you take the Money in the Bank winner, who's already had cash-ins that haven't really worked to an extent, who is setting a program with someone who's going to be in a bigger program in a month, where everyone has turned around and said, she's going to cash in at SummerSlam on Jade. Is this one of the best swerves in modern WWE? Nothing leaked. There was no conversations about, hey, Naomi's going to cash in on Io or on Rhea or on anyone on this. It was only ever linked to Tiffany, to Jade Cargill, and everyone's talking about, let's have this Bianca Belair triple threat next year too. It was quite incredible that they were able to pull this off, and Naomi deserves it, and I think that's the key word. You deserve it, Chance. Are used more than they probably should, but this is a case where she absolutely did. Just twatting her with the briefcase was amazing, and the briefcase design, when they give them their own custom briefcase on, you probably think that means they're going to have the belt for a little bit longer, but it really didn't. But to use it as a weapon, as part of this character, the fact she's so unpredictable, she proved it. She absolutely proved it, and I absolutely love Naomi for it. So well deserved, and I'm so excited for it. And I'm really curious to see what comes next. I know there's talk of a triple threat at SummerSlam. I really hope this isn't just Naomi's going to get the belt and warm it for a month or two. Obviously, Stephanie Vaquer will be in one of the title pictures by the end of August, but I really don't know what follows this. But this was one of the best cash-ins WWE has done. It will be one that is remembered. I think it was the right time and the right place for it with the unpredictability. Let's hope the reign can back up of what the cash-in has and will be.
This main event with Io Sky versus Rhea Ripley, regardless of the finish of the match, I'm basically going to talk about that as if it was another segment or another match. This is match of the year. The only other contender for me for match of the year is Io Sky versus Rhea Ripley versus Bianca Belair at WrestleMania back in April. This match was sensational. It is immediately an instant classic. The storytelling, the moves, they were going all out. It doesn't matter that this is a evolution. They were they were wrestling like they were on the grandest stage of them all. They were wrestling back at WrestleMania. How Rhea just kept powering over Io. How Io just kept getting up and moving away and swerving all these moves from Rhea. It was just pitch perfect. They're such great opponents for each other. They have such a history with each other. And after this night, they've continued to make history with each other. I could have watched this match all night long. I could have watched 2.5 hours of this match. They are two of the best wrestlers in the world. Io Sky is an inhumane worker. Like, I don't know how she has all that energy to pull off all these things so smoothly. And Rhea Ripley is, bar none, purely the best women's wrestler in the world today. She is the biggest women's superstar. She's one of the biggest superstars, period, in professional wrestling, and with good reason. Their work in the ring, their work with psychology, their work in their characters is flawless. I have no bones to pick with this one, so I don't want to waste a lot of time just shouting superlatives and praising this match for what it is, because it is the match of the year so far. But from then, we move to the biggest swerve of the weekend. And no, we're not talking about AEW All In and how Swerve helped Hangman Adam Page win the title. We're talking about Naomi, who peered our focus into having her cash in on Jade or Tiffy at SummerSlam or whenever she chooses, even if it was on this same night. And she comes in when the ref is down, when Rhea and Io are down, and she cashes in on Io Sky. So number one, they protected Rhea Ripley, and they can keep that story of she's never beaten Io Sky before. And they've also protected Io Sky, who had just been through a grueling match. She gets hit in the head with a briefcase, and then she gets a moonsault. Of course she goes down for the pin. And now after Raw last night, we have this amazing triple threat. You got clear direction for Rhea Ripley, clear direction for Io Sky, clear direction for Naomi. It's just this evil, maniacal champion that I love to see. Their energies, their characters just work so well as foils for one another. And like I said at the beginning, this was a fantastic pay-per-view. Shout out to the crowd. Shout out to all the incredible talent we had here on this night, from SmackDown to Raw to my favorite show every week, NXT. Just an incredibly well put together pay-per-view, even if the build in and of itself was sort of underwhelming. It sort of feels like this is the Marvel Phase 4 and Phase 5 of WWE, this build for Evolution, where the build is okay, but then you get to the actual movie and it's like, oh my god, that's so cool. So those are our thoughts on Evolution. Just a great pay-per-view, a great night of professional wrestling that just keeps the momentum of this entire weekend coming into this next week and also into SummerSlam. The card is stacked already, and it's been 2 days since Evolution. We got CM Punk versus Gunther, Naomi versus Io versus Rhea. We got Tiffy versus Jade. We got a random tag team match with Logan Paul and Drew McIntyre versus Randy Orton and Jelly Roll. I think that's his name. Sure, we need to have one of those. It's 2 nights. It's fine. It's not going to be as good as Evolution, probably, but we'll be here to talk about it. If you guys want to find me, you can find me at Ren Geekness on all the socials. I talk about movies. If you want to ask me live on my podcast, I talk about professional wrestling, because these are 2 of my biggest loves. So thank you so much again for joining us on Cinema Savvy, and we'll see you next time for SummerSlam.
And that's kind of it. It's a weird outro. Ren's done his. He's gone. As he said, you can find him, follow him, chat to him, ask him out. But this has been an attempt at doing a spoiler discussion without the 2 of us together. I'm really curious on how it works, how it looks. It's been weird to record, but fun to record. I actually texted him whilst I'm recording. I hadn't seen his clips. He doesn't know my thoughts, so we went into this blind together. And it's been a fun way to spoil a discussion on a show like this. It's given us tension in a review. We don't really get tension in reviews unless there's arguments, but this has been an absolute delight. And obviously the wrestling videos are not going away anytime soon. No, we're not a wrestling channel. No, we don't do SmackDown or Raw or NXT. We do the WWE pay-per-views. That's nothing against AEW as well. It's more programming. This is a film and TV channel. With the Netflix deal, we and many other viewers have the chance to watch this, and that's why we kind of do this. We wanted to bring in a passion of ours, and we've been doing this for sort of 7 months now, and I hope people have enjoyed it. A lot of people commenting, members in live streams. Apologies, this is one that we've had to upload, so I will reply to any comments people do want to post on there. But in the meantime, you want to find out what else we're working on. It's been a very busy week on the channel. We've had Harry Potter casting videos, we've had the Emmy discussions, we've had Superman spoiler discussions. We've got a lot of Fantastic Four stuff happening over, I should have said the next 4 days. It's not going to work, but we'll find a way to make it work. So do get us on social medias. We'll obviously be having a lot more stuff coming out. We're working on some series behind the scenes. Whenever there are details, whenever there are announcements, we put them on our social medias: Facebook, Instagram, Letterboxd, Blue Sky, Twitter. Am I repeating myself? I don't know. You can find us on our Linktree link in the description below. But as I said, we will be back. As Ren said, we're back at Summerslam, a 2-night show. I'm very curious. I'm recording on Tuesday. I already know that it's Gunther versus Punk. I'm excited to see what other storylines are planned. So that is me counting out. Thank you, Ren, for sending in your video. Thank you to everyone for watching at home, and we'll see you on the next one. Take care.
There you go. Enjoy editing, George.